Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Valuco and welcome to Personal Pans, conversations about belief, transformation, and all the weird and wonderful things we experience. Today's conversation is with Alex Matsuo, and oh God, what a good conversation. Alex is somebody that I admire for being very outspoken on Twitter about real representation, not just tokenism, but real diversity, real inclusion, things that matter, right? Not just gestures. She's also very outspoken about methodology for ghost hunting, has this critique of the Estes method, which is something that I have thought of too, and it was so nice to hear someone else mention this. Like, why don't we record those sessions to play back later? And she mentioned there's a really easy way to do it. She was a wealth of knowledge. This is really cool. And Alex was just really gracious and feels the same way about a lot of issues as I do in terms of changing the paranormal community for the better. And we also, of course, had a wonderful conversation about what ghosts could be rather than what they are, and the play and curiosity that comes with questioning your own assumptions about things. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do as well.
I just respect that you don't have a problem calling out nonsense, or at the very least, like poorly realized research methodology when it comes to the paranormal. And that's something that I will rant about pretty much at the drop of a hat, that I don't think there are rigorous enough research methods. And if you're making claims to extraordinary things, you should have extraordinary evidence, or at least evidence.
Yeah, at the very least. Yeah, as you've probably seen on Twitter, I've made quite a few enemies in the paranormal TV world.
My moon's in Scorpio. I'm all for that.
And what's interesting is it's like it didn't even start out like I didn't start out with ill intent about it. It was more of like me coming in saying, well, what about this, or what about X, Y, and Z? And really the other person, I'm not going to name names on this podcast, but really started coming in at me pretty aggressively. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. We don't even know what the frick we're studying here. And you're making some really interesting claims here that you really can't back up with anything but Wikipedia. So, especially with the last interaction, not the last, second to last interaction I had with a TV person where they made the claim that pareidolia is visual. And if anyone's watched my YouTube channel, you know who it is. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Wait a minute. And I can understand, and I can empathize with misspeaking too. Or it's like, oh, I didn't mean it like that, X, Y, and Z. I mean, yes. I can empathize with that, but it was the digging of the heels and just standing firm in the idea and then defending yourself with Wikipedia. I was like, oh, no. It's and it was interesting too, because this person's also a very beloved figure on TV, and I'm sitting here like, oh snap, I'm gonna like get them to unleash the dogs or unleash the hounds on me, but it didn't really happen, which was good. And I actually ended up getting a lot of support on YouTube, and I was pleasantly surprised about that. I got more support than negativity, and it's disappointing too, because when we all work day jobs, we all have other lives that we have to supplement what we do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, when you're on TV, like you're in that world, that's your job. You might have more resources. Actually, I know for a fact you have way more resources than I do when it comes to paranormal research, because it is literally your job. So, right. So I was just a bit surprised. I was a little surprised. And I mean, it's not the first time it happened. I mean, with this person's co-star, a similar situation happened with the Estes method. It was the other co-star who made the person A, well, they're both person A, I guess, made the claim that, so a fan had pointed out like, hey, it's a little weird that we don't get to hear what's coming in through the Estes method. And person A said, well, there's no way we can do that. And I'm like, well, actually there is a way you can record the output of the Estes method. I mean, it takes a little bit of tweaking with, with whatever you're using. With an SV7, it's going to be, you're messing with the output. You have to basically, it's, I mean, a little technological jargon here, but you have to add something to the output to make it record. I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, now that this came out, I've actually been considering making a tutorial about it. And then person B came at me saying that's not how the Estes works. And I'm like, well, okay, so the concern is recording the output. In this case, with good research with the Estes method, if we're going to be going off the fact that we're hearing stuff in our ears and repeating them and making the claims that that's what the spirits are saying, it would be beneficial to record the output, because we want to be able to line up, what is the person who is under, what are they hearing? What are they hearing? And so, and if we can, and it's not to debunk, it's, if the person who's under hears, my name is Sam, and then we hear in the output, my name is Sam, oh my gosh, that's incredible, and it aligns up with a question. So if anything, that's just gonna substantiate paranormal research a bit more. So, but it ended up turning into this really petty back and forth about what a true Estes method is. And then the other person was saying, oh, it's more like you're in a trance. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing here. So
no. And
Yeah.
again, if you want to be in a trance, that's a separate thing. But if you're claiming that you are hearing things, then, and this, because I've seen a few of your videos, and I watched you bring this up, and I was so grateful, because that's the one thing that drives me crazy about the Estes method, is that we don't get the audio. Just record the audio. And again, when you're talking about, when you're interacting with people who are on television shows, it's not like they don't have dedicated people who are working there specifically to make sure that audio is recorded. So they would know, oh, it's this jack, it's this connector. You just have to do this, and then we can have the audio. Because
it's not hard.
It's not hard. Again, you're talking about doing a tutorial for it. And I'm assuming your day job isn't working in audio equipment. So you figured out how to make this happen, right?
Yep.
And you're to teach other people. These are tools, these are things that you can buy yourself in order to document the work that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I did learn it from just an audio engineer, just someone who works with sound. They run a recording studio. And literally, I just texted him one day because, he was interested in the paranormal, and we connected. And I just texted him one day and I said, hey, so here's the setup situation here. I want to record the output, because right now the output is going into headphones, but I want to know if there's a way to record the output in the headphones, and either in a separate like box, or if we can stick microphones in the headphones. Like, I don't know how this would work. And he was like, okay, well, just bring the setup to my studio, explain what you want to do, give me a couple days. It literally took him like half a day, and he's like, okay, yep, you're just gonna want to do boop 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 boop. I'm like, that's it? He's like, yeah, that's it. So it's not difficult. And you're right, with TV, they have a dedicated team of people recording audio, like, who have an understanding of what it means to record any sort of, audio. So in this case, we would be recording the output and inputting it into a separate recording device. So people could probably figure it out just from me explaining it right now. It's
right.
And we use a double headphone jack. So basically, it's a headphone jack with two female parts. So like, my phone doesn't have a headphone jack anymore because I decided to upgrade, and terrible idea.
Of course.
It was a terrible idea because I have to buy an adapter if I want to use headphones. Yes. But it's like, you put the headphone jack in here, and then it's got two female parts. So you can make one output go into headphones, and you can make the other side go to a recording device.
Incredible. Oh my God.
That's how you do it.
God. Right. Yeah. So
That's
you
how
got
you do
it. And again, so my background is in research, right? Is in social science research. And so we should always be collecting more information. There is no harm in collecting more information that can be verified by external sources. And if you have a problem with that, then you're probably scared that it's not going to be replicable, you know? And again, there are plenty of explanations for that, but at least give us the audio, like put that out there into the world. Again, if you want it to be a trance, let it be a trance. I have no problem with woo, right? I have no problem with that. But if you want it to be science, if you're making scientific claims, you have to do science.
Exactly. And, you know, and let's even just look at paranormal equipment for the last 10 years. I mean, we could push it and say 15, 20 years. It has not evolved. I mean, the only thing we've really had that's evolved has been the spirit box, which has been, you know, went from a Shack Hack radio from Radio Shack, which is what I use, because I'm a little old school, but you can enhance it. I mean, that's what technology does. It evolves, and we need to evolve with that technology, and not with apps. I have to make that note.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the fact that ghost hunting equipment hasn't changed really in the last 10 years is concerning too. I mean, there's room for like old school methods. I mean, shoot, we still use like Victorian methods in some of our research, because it's like, does this work? Let's see if it works.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a lack of like as you said, unwillingness to try, because maybe they're afraid it's not going to work, or I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, I do have an issue with, and plus just making the claims like this is my word and I'm right, when it's like, well, actually maybe X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And it just turns into, it turns into an attack rather than accepting criticism, which is honestly a big part of parapsychology, because peer-reviewed journals are a thing. And even in the corporate working world, I mean, you're going to get critique and feedback. It's just a part of life. And a lot of people in the paranormal community are not open to critique or feedback, which I think it might be why the field has been so stagnant for so long. It's like we stick with what's safe and we all just want to get along type of thing.
Yes, right. And I won't reference, because I recently just watched that video that you referenced, like right at the beginning of our talk. I won't say, I'll just tell people to go to your channel and watch it. I won't say who it is. But like even the fact that there is such a knee-jerk reaction to just basic terminology, you know, being corrected, like even gently corrected about basic terminology, you shouldn't be upset about that. The answer should always be, oh, thanks, I didn't know that. I don't know why there seems to be, I've noticed this in UFO Twitter, in paranormal Twitter, this fear or unwillingness to say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, this is, I've learned something. That's great. I need to research that more. Or I don't know this. Let me look into it. Again, it's science. That's the point. You're not going to know everything, but you have to go out there. You learn from other people. You learn as you go, and then you're refining your methodology, so you're getting better information. No one should be offended by that, unless, again, you're living in this insular world where nobody is questioning what you're doing and no one's challenging you, and you think you're right, and you think that somebody questioning your methodology is like a personal affront. It's not. It's just saying like, no, this is your job. This is your science. Let's get the science right.
Like it's literally your job. Like this is yeah. And you know, even going to like, you know, back in the olden days when I was working for Disney, you know, when we were asked something we didn't know, we'd say, that's a great question. I will get an answer to you. You know, it's like, yeah, it's a knee-jerk reaction. And I've noticed this recently because this, I mean, even with the recent interaction regarding pareidolia and the Estes method, that wasn't my first big run-in with someone on TV. I mean, with the Demon in the White House documentary, when I was critiquing it, gosh, this is the most beautiful thing. I'm going to make a video about it, because about the actual incident. It's beautiful. So basically my main critique of the Demon in the White House shock doc was that they were really pushing and forcing the demon narrative, which was very odd. And also they were distorting some of the historical facts a bit. And so I was like, it's really weird that they would do this and they would bring in the people that they did, because there are experts in spirituality in the White House. Michelle Hamilton is one of them. She was actually one of the people, as I was watching the shock doc, I'm like texting her and being like, is this really true? Did this president bring in an exorcist? And she's like, no, she's sitting there like having an aneurysm watching it.
Oh God.
And so that was my main critique of the documentary. And then of all people, the producer of the documentary commented on my video saying, well, if you had paid attention, or if you knew that the documentary was based on this book, then I think your critique would change. And I can't remember the title of the book off the top of my head, but I look up the book and it's a fictional novel.
No.
Yeah, it's a fictional novel. And I point that out, and and the producer deleted the comment and then replaced it with, great feedback, thanks. And I'm like, oh no, I got the receipts now. I got the receipts.
Oh my God.
And I was like, it's funny because I knew that the book existed, but I didn't think, and I have to credit Haunt Johns for actually initially picking this up, because that's where I got the tip from when she was writing about the documentary, because she was like, I wonder if it's based on this book. And I looked up the book and I was like, okay, it's fiction. I don't think it's gonna be a big they wouldn't do that. And then the producer, lo and behold, mentions this book, and I'm like, okay, is it fiction? I really need to look it up. And I looked it up and I'm like, it's fiction. The title literally has a novel under the title. So yeah. So I'm like, okay, so this is more of a mockumentary then. It's not a documentary. But yeah, literally probably the most beautiful moments I will ever have in my paranormal career. Like, it was just, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Like, again, this is basic due diligence, right? Again, you're talking about parapsychology and journal articles being peer reviewed. That is pretty standard in every academic discipline. And again, to have read a novel and you didn't see this is a novel, and you're like, we're going to do a whole documentary about this. This is true. We're going to tell the world. Cool, friends.
Yeah.
Just read for comprehension, maybe. Yeah.
It was just so disappointing too, because there are stories surrounding hauntings in the White House that definitely are interesting, but it's the media, it's paranormal media just pushing this whole demon narrative, which that alone is problematic. I mean, if we're going to be honest, it's extremely problematic, especially for people from, the pagan and non-Christian community. It's problematic. I mean, the Dybbuk box is a big problematic topic that continues to be perpetuated. I am working on a video on that, but I'm trying to tread very carefully that I'm not speaking over the Jewish community, but supporting the Jewish community with it. So I'm being very cautious with my research and, how I want to handle that, because I mean, I have a decent following, so I want to use my privilege, so to speak, and my voice to amplify this message. So there's a lot of things that paranormal TV gets away with, and the paranormal community gets away with, that I think if it was just in I call it the muggle world, just in the regular average day to day, people would not get away with it. Which, I mean, you probably saw the really difficult question I asked on Twitter a few days ago about, is it ethical for white investigators to be investigating slave plantations?
Yes.
And I posed that question not because I agreed with it, but it's because I see it all the time. And personally, I have a moral dilemma with it. Yes. And I'll be truthful. I have investigated locations that have had presence of slaves. They've never wanted to talk to me, and there's a good reason why.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was very surprised. Like, so Twitter was way more like, I don't even know if centric is the right word. Majority of the
Mhm.
answers were no,
Yes.
which is great.
Yes.
And there was a lot of people of color who responded to it, and they were
Mhm.
like, yeah, absolutely not. It's not okay. On
Yeah.
Facebook, however, everyone was saying it was okay and that they need to get over their history, or any person of color that speaks out against this, they have a chip on their shoulder. And I'm sitting here like, and it's all, and it's all white people
Of
saying
course it
this.
is. Yeah.
And, and I was just sitting here like, and it goes back to the cultural appropriation thing with, smudging and everything. It's like,
Yes.
if it's not a part of your culture and it's not your heritage, you don't get to decide whether or not,
Yes.
it's accessible to you or not, or whether or not it's okay. So it was
Yes.
very, yeah. And I mean, I expected Facebook to go in that direction. I'll be honest, because my
course.
Facebook following is way more right leaning. I don't know why they follow me.
Right, like, do they watch your content or pay attention to your opinion?
Like, it just kind of blows my mind, because I've decided to be less neutral about these topics now, and very outspoken, because I want to attract the audience that is my target audience.
Yes, of course.
And I want to be more of my authentic self. And I got called the paranormal social justice warrior not too long ago, which I was like, okay.
Yeah, right. like not an insult. Cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And I feel like my thoughts aren't even that radical. I mean, they're fairly normal, like in regular day life. Like, at my job is very, very progressive. I mean, they have groups within the company where you can relate to people, like in the LGBT community, Asian community, and women. And so, I mean, I'm in a very progressive place of employment too. And so and I have been even at my previous role. And so I feel like I'm not that radical in normal day-to-day life, but apparently in the paranormal, it's like I'm a social justice warrior, which
and again, it's so, like you said, it's so wild for, again, the barometer to be so different, because I feel like I'm very lucky, because my social circle on Twitter, my paranormal friends, they're all very progressive, and are not afraid of asking questions, like, or again, one of the things I admire about you is you're always talking about representation, and I feel like somebody came at you and was just like, well, but one of the biggest paranormal TV shows has a woman on it. And it's like, okay, but it's just one woman. Like, where are Asian people? Where are other people of color? Right? Where is the representation for all the different types of people who are alive in this country, in this world right now? Oh, you got one. That's all you get. Everybody else is a white dude, either with a beard or not a beard, and they all look the same. Like,
that's the thing, they all look the same. And I get it from the production standpoint, like it's a cookie cutter formula that they want to stick with. But in my recent interaction with a person on TV, or was on TV, their show got canceled. I mean, it happens. It happens.
Yeah,
it happens. And the reason why I was initially so, like, they were on the right track with their response to the person who said, wow, there's really, and then it was a response to someone saying there's a huge disparity and imbalance of women on TV. And the message and the response read is very passive and just very ignorant, not ignorant as in like angry, aggressive ignorant, but just unaware of the real issue when it comes to representation in the paranormal. And that's actually why I got set off. I'm like, whoa, dude, hang on. Like, this is X, Y, and Z. We have a huge disparity in representation on TV. And I didn't even touch on people who are disabled either. It's one of those, I didn't even touch on that. And I feel bad about it now, because I'm like, I should have touched on that. But but as someone who is a mixed Asian American, I have no representation in paranormal TV. And it's like, well, Katrina Weidman, I love her. She's fabulous. She's been on shows. Yes, you're stretching out one woman throughout multiple shows.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Like, and I'm like, how do you not see that?
Yes, exactly. Right.
Tokenism.
Right. Tokenism is not representation, right? It's like, we'll throw you a bone so you shut up. Like that's all that is. And it's again, these like scared white dudes in these corporate offices who think, oh no, we have to have these type of people on television. Nobody is going to want to see women or people of color, any of that, gay people, disabled people. Like, no, we can't have any of that. It's like, no, people are desperate to see themselves so they can feel like, oh, I can do this too, right? Like if someone like me is doing this is affirming something that I do and that I love. It's so powerful. Representation matters. Like,
exactly. And the whole, and people always bring up Ghost Brothers as like, oh, that's our representation. I'm like, yes, it is representation, but you also put all of the people of color in one show.
Yeah.
Like you put them all in a corner of the sandbox.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's like, clearly that show is successful. Like, why weren't they added to the new Ghost Hunters cast or any of these recent shows? Like, spread them out. Like, because you've already done the test run with your audiences and they love them. Why not put them in other shows? I mean, shoot, I'll even take them on ghost adventures, it's, it's like, it's bad when I say that I'm like, I'll even take ghost adventures.
I know.
But it's incredibly frustrating. And my only representation that I had was Joe Chin on Ghost Hunters. I think it was on Ghost Hunters International, which has been off the air for a while. It's been, but an Asian woman on a ghost hunting show. I mean, oh my gosh, if I saw that, I would be so thrilled about that. But same thing with like plus size. Like we don't really have we don't have plus size women, on TV. We don't have plus size women. It makes a difference when you see yourself represented and it's crazy. And then the idea is crazy to me because the rest of Hollywood is picking up on, oh, we need to have more diversity in our programming. I mean, Netflix, Hulu, Main Street TV. I mean, there's a new TV show coming out. I think it's on Sci-Fi. It's 2 plus size girls who are monster hunters. And I was like,
amazing.
Yes. Like this is the show I've been needing for literally 20 years. Literally 20 years. So it's like the rest of the industry is moving forward with diversity and representation and inclusion. But the paranormal media is so behind on that. And it's funny because my team and we were being fielded for a TV show by a production company in like 2018, I think it was 2018. And they were strongly considering us. We were an all-female team at the time. Two of my team members were parents. They were mothers. And, I was working multiple jobs because, side hustling and everything is a thing. And my other team member was a caretaker for her mother. So they really wanted to focus on like, hey, this is their day to day, but then at night they're ghost hunters. And so Sci-Fi was not interested. Travel Channel was not interested. Discovery was not interested. The only network that was interested in us was, oh my gosh, it was TLC. Just TLC was interested. And, TLC does delve into like the spiritual stuff, but it's, female media, it's mediums. And that's the trope that women often get shoehorned into. It's like they're the witch or they're the psychic or both.
Yes, exactly. Yes, right. And that's so frustrating because there are paranormal investigators, like, again, I interviewed Amanda Woomer on the 3rd episode.
I love her.
Yeah, adore her.
I love her.
Exactly. And we had a similar conversation about representation. Representation matters. And it's not like women are doing everything in terms of paranormal investigation. But again, you only see them when they're the witch, when they're the medium, essentially like, if they can shoehorn it into a way that reinforces societal gender norms, that's what they're going to do, right? that, oh yes, women feel things and experience things. And again, I can call myself a witch, right? But also I'm a scientist when it comes to research, like, and I care about research methodology. And there are so many women who care, like, to not include them, to erase them from that representation is a crime. It's a crime. And
you're right.
I mean, again, I rant and have ranted about paranormal conventions with her and with other people. And I used to do the chainmail jewelry. That was my full-time job. I still do it, but part-time. And there was a similar kind of issue that I'm seeing in the paranormal community now that I saw in the craft industry then, where there were a lot of white people that had a lot of money and they were retirees and they had some really problematic political views. And so all of these places were keeping real quiet about anything progressive and staying real middle of the road because they didn't want to scare off the bigot bucks like that. And I think that's what's going on in the paranormal community too, because again, I love conspiracy theories, but there are a lot of them that lend themselves to some really dodgy politics. And there is a fear, I think, we can't alienate those people because they're spending money. They're watching the TV shows, they're buying the merchandise, they're going to the conventions. If we say anything that alienates them, where are we going to get our money? And I'm like, the rest of us like want representation and want people who care. Maybe, I don't know. That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why I'm so outspoken, because I don't have anything to lose. Like I have books out, and I mean, I've had 2 TV gigs, and I'll be honest, most of the time these producers don't know who the heck I am. They just see me as a product with a story to share. Like that's being brutally honest.
Yes.
You know, now granted, I'm sure if my name comes up on a certain TV show, they're gonna be like, oh, hell no. Like, I think with certain TV shows, it's not going to be quite the same thing. But, you know, having been on the other side of paranormal media and the entertainment, and just in the general, the entertainment industry, because I'm originally from Southern California, I did the actor thing in LA.
Sure.
So, I mean, I've seen that side, and I don't have anything to lose. Like, maybe a few book sales, like, oh, you're not going to buy my book because I spoke out against this person. Boo-hoo, you know, it's, you know, I don't depend on this as my income. I mean, maybe one day when I'm like retired and, you know, I'm just making content, maybe, but even then I'm probably not going to be, I've learned to never depend on this for like money, like financial support and money, even with a TV show. Like I know people who are on the last, this recent round of Ghost Hunters that was led by Grant that got canceled. And so, you know, it's fleeting. TV is very fleeting. So I mean, if they were to, and I've said this before, if I got offered a TV show, I would say no, because I'm not going to sacrifice my career. You know, I'm not going to sacrifice my career for this. You know, and I have a wonderful job. I work for a wonderful company. I got benefits, and I'm not gonna give that up, especially since it's stable and it gives me the ability to travel. And with, you know, COVID and Omicron right now, I can basically work from wherever I want. So
yes, right.
You know, it's not something I'm okay with, as long as people don't dox me and find out where I work and then try to get me fired, it's fine. But but you know, and I'll get paranormal people trying to add me on LinkedIn, and I'm like, nope.
Oh no.
I'm like, that's not what LinkedIn is for. Anyway.
Exactly. And these two worlds stay apart. Thank you.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing, you know, boundaries within the field is so like, there's a lot of paranormal people who feel entitled to my other life. Like they'll even friend my fiance, who is not a paranormal person at all.
Oh, no.
And he accidentally accepted a couple, but they're pretty harmless and they're okay. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you can keep him around, but he gets flooded with friend requests all the time. And I'm just like, you know,
yikes.
But so I don't depend on this for any sort of financial gain. I mean, I am monetized. I'm monetized on YouTube. I'm monetized on TikTok. I mean, I'll be honest, TikTok, I get maybe $20 a month, which, you know, that could go get, you know, buy myself a coffee and you know, maybe, maybe cat litter.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And on my website and YouTube, I mean, I probably make a couple hundred per month, but then I just put that towards my wedding or my student loans.
Oh
So
my gosh,
it's one of those.
of course, yeah.
It's one of those, like, I'm not making big bucks from this.
Yes.
I literally have nothing to lose by speaking out. And I feel like the ones who don't have anything to lose really should leverage that privilege and speak out more.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people, they don't want to lose favor with these paranormal TV stars for, I don't know what reason.
Right.
I used to work for a paranormal TV star. They're not great. They're not that special. I mean, they're just people. they're
just
literally people.
Exactly.
They're just people. Like,
yes.
I had a lot of people with the last interaction I had with the last TV person I had. A lot of people were bulldogging for this guy. And I'm sitting here like, what are you doing this for? For one tweet of acknowledgement that you exist? Like,
right.
You're gonna relentlessly, because one person was like relentlessly harassing me, like several tweets, like commenting on random tweets from like a year ago, and commented on one of my engagement posts and being like, I just want to know why you're bugging this person. And I'm like, whoa, dude. So that was an instant block, but I'm just like, why? It's just like, but why are you doing this? Like, what? I don't understand. Like, I've learned to never bulldog for somebody, especially for a paranormal TV star, because really they don't have to do anything. They can let you say what's on their mind, and you get the consequences. They do not.
Exactly. So, right.
Yeah.
It's such a weird, again, it's that parasocial. I think parasocial relationships have a even greater tendency to form when you're dealing with the paranormal and with weird stuff, because I'm a nerd, and like, you grow up and you're like, I don't, nobody else likes this stuff. I'm just doing my own weird thing in a corner. And it can feel really affirming when you meet somebody or you see somebody on television, let's say, or even on YouTube, and you think, oh, this person, they think like I do. And then you develop that kind of, like you said, that like bulldog approach, like you think somebody comes at them and you make it your job to attack that person. Like, first of all, you don't even know this person with a blue check. You probably never met them, or if you did, it was at a convention and they were polite to you because they had to be. And secondly, like, you're not friends with them, and like they are, and especially like, if you're like, anything I've seen that we've talked about, like, you don't come at people. It's just like, here are facts, here is information. Maybe you didn't know this, here you go. And for somebody to have that kind of visceral reaction to something like that, it's just so, it kind of scares me sometimes, because it's like, where are you not centered in your own life that this matters so much to you, that this is the thing that you're going to start fights on the internet with strangers over, that you're going to go through old posts to make comments to try to get your attention? Like, no, friends, like, learn to play the guitar or something. You got to do other things with your time.
Yep. Right. Yeah. And the times that any time that I have replied to a TV star was when they were going at somebody who had a question. And that honestly bothers me, especially when they're dedicated fans. And I've noticed there's been, like, one of them does, and it was the person I mentioned about the pareidolia. And this is a pattern with them. They have a tendency to quote their tweet and then reply in a way that signals victimhood, so that their fans will go after them. And if you look at it, it happens a lot. It happens a lot. And the poor girl that this person was coming after, I really felt for her, because she got roasted just for suggesting, like, or just for saying like, hey, it was just really weird that we couldn't hear the other side of this Estes method. It's just very questionable because the responses were just too good to be true. That's a fair observation. And it wasn't like, you're fake, or it was just like, I'm having a hard time accepting this, that kind of thing, which again, that's not bad. It's not a bad thing to say. It might sting a little, it might go like, ooh, ow, but that's when you walk away, go eat some dinner, take a walk.
Right. Get some endorphins in your system,
just, or watch a funny TV show and then look back and be like, is this person right? Does this warrant a response? And then go from there.
So exactly.
Yeah, it's it's unfortunate to see that. And I'm sitting here, and plus most of these TV people have PR training. Like they have training on how to engage with the public. So and my whole thing is, if it bothers them that much, then they really just shouldn't respond to those kind of tweets. I mean, at all.
Well, and this is the thing too, you would think that somebody on television and you know, we talked earlier about like the everything is a demon now. And again, so many of these television shows, not only just one thing, multiple things happen in a night. It's like, all right, not all of that is real. That's just television, right? You just know not all of this is real. So even if you are on the level, and I think some people are, like, you have to understand that there is an inherent skepticism when you are watching a television show and it is professionally edited and anybody could plant anything there, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think it's healthy to have that skepticism. I think way too many people just buy all of it. And it's like, no, that's not, if you have weird experiences, they're typically not like that, you know? Where it's just like, oh, sometimes you will, but it's not like all these things in one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One night.
What was that?
Yeah. Do you feel cold? And then bang, bang, bang. Like, all right, friends. Like, we know what this is. So I don't think, I mean, again, to me, that makes so much sense. Like, hey, do you have recordings? Is there a way to record this? Is there a way to share that? Because then even that can be such a wonderful way to engage the community, where if somebody says, well, I didn't hear this, but I heard this instead. And then, oh, did you hear that? What did you hear? That's a way of like true engagement and getting people really excited about, again, the data collection, the science of it, as opposed to just acting like a victim because somebody questioned your methodology. Like, again, you see that in academic circles too. Lots of very delicate sensibilities, but maybe relax a little bit. You're ghost hunting. Like, maybe chill out.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like, at the end of the day, we're ghost hunting, y'all. Like, anyway, gosh, there's an academic. I mean, he is an academic. He has this really, it is a wonderful methodology. I don't think it's the end all be all methodology, but he thinks it's the end all be all methodology. So I've actually ended up butting heads with his partner quite a few times about it, because his approach to ghost hunting is taking context, you know, more contextual scenarios and presenting them to a haunted landscape, which that's terminology he uses, and it is effective. Yeah, but sometimes my whole thing is you're also pigeonholing that haunted landscape, that haunted location, as only ghosts from this era are haunting it. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also the methodology, and let's be honest, and this isn't necessarily the creator's fault. It's not very inclusive to women, but that's because he is working off of eras that aren't inclusive to women. Right. So it's one of those, like, you know, it's like, I can still, but then it's like, if you try any other methodology outside of that, it's not legitimate. And I'm like, well, as a woman, I've had legitimate paranormal experiences that didn't involve me dressing in period costume. Right. You know, and I've had encounters, you know, like in Gettysburg, my mother came through on a spirit box, and my mom and I had never been to Gettysburg together. Right. As far as I know, she had never been to Gettysburg. I mean, I've never heard, I mean, she had never been to Gettysburg. And so I'm like, so it's like, if we're going to go off of, well, only Civil War soldiers are at this location, well, how do you explain my mother popping up? You know, like, and literally, we were all doing a spirit box session, and we were trying to talk to these ghosts, you know, the Civil War soldiers. And we kept hearing this male voice saying my name. And it was like, after the 4th or 5th time, I said, yeah, I'm here. What do you need to say to me? And then I hear, hi, honey. Like, oh yeah, I was a crying mess. Like, by the way, of course. I did not keep that together. Like, that was like, nor should you. Punch in the gut, like, My team member had to be like, okay, what's your mom's name? Okay, I got this. Well, I'll take care. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, it's my mom.
Of course.
So,
God, yes.
but yeah, and just for context, it was after midnight on a Sunday and in May, and I didn't realize it, but it was Mother's Day when she came through. So,
Oh
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So it's like, but how do you explain that? So, and that's where my whole tweet of, because that whole conversation came from the question of, do spirits travel? And someone said, well, why don't we see Civil War soldiers at the Roman Colosseum? Well, how do you know? We don't know. Like, just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not there.
That's exactly it. Yes.
So it's like, we haven't been able to prove any of this, unfortunately. We're not, and I don't think we will, to be honest, because I think this is just a realm that we're never going to know all the answers to, but to absolutely say for a fact, like, ghosts don't travel, I'm like, oh, that's problematic. That's, it's, we don't know for sure. But then, and if ghosts don't travel, then how come my mother popped up in Gettysburg of all places?
Right.
In Gettysburg, in this old farmhouse. We're sitting in this abandoned farmhouse with a spirit box with like creaky floorboards, your classic haunted house looking place.
Yes.
Freezing our butts off because it was still cold in May. And I'm expecting to talk to some Civil War soldiers, and I could just picture my mother like pushing through all these soldiers being like, I need to talk to my daughter,
Exactly. You guys talk to everyone. No, she's here for me.
Yeah. So it's so, I mean, but people have noticed ghosts, and plus with Gettysburg, not all the ghosts there are from the Civil War. I mean, generations of people have lived there since the Civil War who have died traumatic deaths. Yes, so if we're assuming that ghosts come from traumatic deaths, but that's a whole other tangent for another time on ghost theory and trauma. And although I do think there's a strong case for like trauma and haunted locations and how they're connected, but that's a whole other tangent for another time. But
perfect.
But that's the research part of it that I absolutely love. Like, there's so many possibilities with that, and it's like, okay, well, let's go with this idea for a little bit. It's kind of ADHD. I fixate on this theory for like a month, and then I move on to another one.
Done with it forever.
But then I have a whole notebook of notes. I mean, where's my pile? Oh yeah, I have a whole pile of. I'll even pull it out. Hang on.
Oh yes.
These are all my notebooks of like research ideas I get. And
I love it.
So
I love it.
Literally like an idea or a thought comes and I'm like, okay. Okay. All right. We're like this month we are focusing on Civil War soldiers in Rome. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I love that too, because again, to me, when I was a kid, I just assumed ghosts were dead people, right? Mm-hmm. But what if they're not? What if they're other kind of energy or combinations of energies or spirits of a place? Or, again, ultra-terrestrials gets thrown around, like something from a different dimension, maybe a shimmer of the past or of the future. Like, to me, it's so much more interesting to ask questions about what things could be and getting into this kind of like dogmatic sensibility of this is what ghosts are, right? Like, again, I to me, it's kind of that idea of doing something historical is cool, right? Like going to certain locations, dressing in period clothing, but you are assuming that ghosts are only this specific kind of thing. So of course you're going to get answers or interactions, I guess, based off of that assumption. Whereas, again, we don't know what these things are. We think we do. We have some ideas, but it's way more interesting to me to like go exploring. Like you said, maybe there are Civil War soldiers who are vacationing in Rome right now because they didn't get to in life, right?
Right.
Or maybe their descendants are there and they're watching over them. Who knows? Like, again, the idea that like ghosts even have travel that is at all analogous to the way that we move through the universe, when these are beings of energy, like, how do you know how they're communicating with us? How do you know where they're moving, how they're traveling? Or if they exist in a space where like all physical locations can like meet at a single point and they can just think themselves anywhere they want to go. We don't know any of this. So maybe play around with the ideas a little rather than saying like, no, this means this and this looks like this and this is all this is. That's so boring to me. Like there's so much. Yeah, right? It's ghosts. You should be excited about it. Have fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like right now, we're dealing with some weird stuff happening in this new apartment. And this building, I think, was built in 2006. We've had some really weird things happen. And we've had now granted, this is the first time we've lived with hardwood floors. So I'm not exactly sure if static electricity is supposed to be a thing, but we have an extreme amount of static electricity around here. Like my fiance and I can't even kiss each other because we get like zapped on the nose. No. Like, and our poor cats like try to like cuddle with us and they get shocked. And there's just a lot of static electricity around here. We've heard noises that like crashes we can't explain. We've also heard we've heard a couple voices. And granted, I had a ghost, what I think is a ghost in my last apartment. And I did say, Frank, if you want, you can come with us. Yeah. And I have a haunted doll, but the behavior that we're experiencing right now is nothing like Frank or Madison. Right. And I'm saying not as that they're officially ghosts. It's just, that's the name of the phenomenon. Like
of course.
Frank is this thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sitting here like, do we have someone else here? Like,
right. Exactly.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, this is a new building, but we are just across the river from Washington, D.C. So, and Arlington National Cemetery is 5 minutes away from us. So maybe we got something here, or it's coming from someone else, but that's exciting to me. And
of course,
it freaks out my poor fiance because anytime something happens, he looks at me like I did it.
You summoned it into the space.
It's like, we'll hear one of our mystery crashes in the kitchen. He's just like, and I'm like,
yeah, this is not me, I swear.
Let me get the recorder. I'll get the recorder. I'll get the Phasma box, and let's. Yeah. So,
that is amazing though, because you have all the gear, so you can just go into the kitchen and be like, "All right, who did this?"
Literally, my equipment's already out. Like that's. I'm that predictable, but yeah, it's like something's happened. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, why not? Exactly.
You know. Because I'm like, okay, who's here? Because if you're cool, that's cool, and
totally.
Stay. If you're nice, if you're not, get the hell out. Bye. Like not dealing with it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So so the whole idea is just really exciting to me. Or are we getting residual things from the previous tenants? And
yes, right.
It's gosh, and I read like there was an article I read, forgot who wrote it, and I made sure it wasn't from a satire site because that's important, about like ghosts being like from like, it's like the multiple dimensions, which blew my, like, I've been familiar with it, but I haven't taken a deep dive into it because I'm not a science person.
Yeah.
I'm like, I like my science, what I know about science and like physics and stuff is if you put a rock on top of the hill and you push it, it rolls down. That's all I know. You put heat underwater and it gets hot. Like and the 3 stages of matter. That's what I know.
That's all the practical knowledge though, right? So you got that down. That's great.
Exactly. So I'm not a huge science person. And then there was another, I was thinking it might have been in the Feminine Macabre, maybe not. Or I knew there was another piece of writing that I read where it's like, maybe when you're like, there's an overlap of time. Like, so when you're going through this old hospital and you see a nurse down the hall, you think it's a ghost. Meanwhile, the nurse is working in the 60s and she sees you down the hall and she thinks you're the ghost. And I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, right. Oh, okay. Okay, my brain hurts, but okay, yes, yeah, right. I'm on board with that idea. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah, because this whole like maybe time's not linear, and there's this whole trend on TikTok right now that's I don't know if it's a serious thing or if it's legit, but people saying like they had another life, like where they were married and had kids, and then they woke up one day and they were like in the current situation that they're in. Like, I think I leaped dimensions, and I'm just like, whoa. Like, I don't know if it's legit. I'm on board if it's legit.
Oh, totally. Yes,
I'm
exactly.
on board. But that's been something I've been wanting to really research too, of like, okay, did this exist before TikTok?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Are there stories of people saying, hey, I had another life, same age, same circumstances, but I had a son, and how do I get back? How do I get back to see my son? And it's not time travel, it's like dimension.
No, it's dimension swapping. Yes.
Dimension swapping. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well, again, I used to watch Sliders when I was a kid. I loved that show, but
love that show.
right. But like, I it's hard to, because like you said, you want to make sure it's not a satire news site. Also Reddit, right? Sometimes people post things and again, it's all self-submitted. So take it with a grain of salt, but sometimes people post stories, and then sometimes people post like actual fiction stories, and they don't necessarily tell you what it is until the end. And so somebody's just skimming, they're like, this is a real thing, right? Like, this is a real documentary, read the book. It's like, that book's a novel, friends, but nice try. Yeah.
B- for effort.
Exactly.
Oh man.
I know. Well, and again too, just like talking about hospitals, like I like this idea that like trauma can potentially almost like that energy can infuse a space. So maybe any heightened energy in a particular space just makes whatever those barriers between dimensions, between times, a little thin. So again, you're seeing a nurse from the 60s, she's seeing you, just like, who the hell is that? Right? Like this cross-dimensional playground.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm all for it. I mean, I'm all for it. If that's a thing, I'm totally there for it. I mean, I think John Tenney has said something very similar, and he's actually like the one TV guy that I'm like, okay, you're legit. You're still researching and you're like still doing it. So
yeah, right. You're still in it. Yes.
He's still in it, and he's in it for the research. And because he did a podcast or interview with We Need to Talk About Britney. I think that's what the show's called. It was about the Britney Spears conservatorship. And it's actually where I got the idea for, the house that Britney Spears and Brittany Murphy lived in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Britney had a Reiki session. It was right after she and Justin Timberlake had broken up. Her parents were splitting up, so life was not great for her at the time. And she had a Reiki session. After the Reiki session happened, she saw like a male and a female spirit arguing. Apparently, they tried to push her down the stairs. She left the house and never came back. And then, like a year or two later, Brittany Murphy and her husband, Simon Monjack, move into the house. And that was the house where Simon Monjack died and where Brittany Murphy was found unconscious and or dead.
Yeah.
I get a little confused with the, like, I've read that she was found unconscious in the house and declared dead at the hospital. But people are saying, oh, she was already dead at the house. But I was like, yeah, but she was declared dead at the hospital. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but apparently Brittany Murphy also had really weird things happen in that house, to the point where she only felt safe in the bathroom. And and John Tenney actually brought up like maybe the couple that Britney Spears saw, the woman spirit that were fighting, maybe that was Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack.
Right.
And there was like this little overlap thing that happened. And I'm like, ooh.
Right.
Like, I'm here for this.
Yes, totally.
So and so he's a big source of inspiration for me too, to really try to think outside the box and honestly, and this is something that a lot of people in the paranormal community are kind of afraid to do, is just say it. Like, obviously don't say it as in I'm right and you're wrong, but it's like, well, here's a crazy idea.
Yes. Right.
Like, here's something weird. Let's see if anyone else can be on board. Like, totally. Humor.
Well, and again, because like we're talking about ghosts, right? We're talking about things that can't be defined. We're talking about this energy. We're talking about time. We don't know how time works, right? Again, there could be nonlinear time. There's so many other things going on. Like, yeah, let's just talk. Like, hey, what about this? what about that? Like, to me, that's so much more interesting and compelling to just have that, the exploration, right? That curiosity, that play, like, I don't know, let's see, what could this thing be?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, huh, yeah, that's really strange. It's like with, well, it's like I just did this on TikTok, but I covered the story of Chloe at Myrtle's plantation, who is this, it's the ghost of this enslaved girl who has been seen in photos. I think those have been doctored, we'll be honest, but she supposedly has talked to guests, and she's like the token enslaved ghost that's seen at Myrtle's plantation. The story behind her is that she was a slave at the plantation, and her owner took a liking to her, took her as his lover. She was 13, 14 years old. Let's be honest, that wasn't a lover or a mistress dynamic. But so because of that, she also had more privileges around the plantation. She was caught eavesdropping on the owner, and he cut her ear off, and then she wore a green turban to hide the disfigurement, and she was sent out to the fields to work. She wanted to win back favor, so she because she was also known as a healer, so she baked a cake poisoned with oleander leaves to just get the owner's kids, just sick enough for her to intervene and heal them and get her place back in the house. It goes horribly wrong. The kids and the wife die. She tries to run. Her fellow slaves turn her in, and they hang her and dump her body in the river. Like, that's the story of Chloe.
Yes.
The problem is Chloe does not exist. There's no record of Chloe. And also the judge's children, 2 of the kids and his wife died a year apart from each other from yellow fever. And the third child ended up living a full life. So it was completely made up, and it really, but it really says a lot about, tropes of, of people of color and slavery, and, because Chloe was also mixed. That was another part of the story. So I did this whole TikTok about it, and I basically asked a question like, why does Myrtle's plantation keep telling the story? But also I'm sitting here like, why do people see Chloe if she doesn't exist? Why? So I kind of been diving into this. Well, what if she's a tulpa, thought form, egregore? Like, what if so many people have heard her story that we've all created her?
Right.
Because I know people who have been to Myrtle's plantation who have been like, I have seen her, and I'm like, green turban? They're like, yeah, green turban. I'm like, this girl didn't exist. So, but then I'm like, well, are we misidentifying someone who was real? It's like, what came first, the story or the apparition? But that's one of those things that I've really been trying to explore of like, are we creating our own hauntings? Like these well-known places like Waverly Hills and Bobby Mackey. And, we have these stories, and, you go to Waverly Hills and you're going to see the tall man, and you're going to get this in the body chute tunnel, and you're going to experience like it's like almost this, like points to hit when you go to Disneyland. Like, we got to go ride Indiana Jones. Oh, we got to go to the 4th floor to see the tall man, So it's like, have we set up those expectations and inadvertently put in that energy into a location and have created our own hauntings, so to speak?
Oh my God. Yes. And I think those are important questions to ask, right? Like, okay, we don't know what the answer is going to be, but ask the question, do the exploration, do the research, right? Figure it out, at least try, rather than saying like, no, it's this. Like, there could be something even cooler going on. Don't you want to know that? Yeah.
Because honestly, like if I ever go to these places and I have someone actively responding, I'm going to say, hey, where'd you come from?
Right.
Like, have you always known this place, or did you have a family? Like, what's going on here? Because
exactly.
Did we make you?
Did we make these are things I want to know. Exactly.
Then the ghost is like, are you my mommy? Anyway. I'll be the cool aunt.
There you go. That's perfect.
But it's just, and that's what I love about the paranormal world with in the research side of it, because we we can ask these questions and really try to explore them. And we get little slivers of it on TV, but we don't get a lot of it. It's just kind of, it's following that same formula that apparently works, which
Yeah, I know.
but is it working really? I don't know. Like, I don't see the numbers. So I would love to see the data on. I'm a big data person, not a science person, but I'm a data person. I love to see the data that supports this.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I take a very data-driven approach to my content too. I'm like, what are people responding to? And that's actually why I ask these questions that I ask, because I'm collecting data. I'm not trying to get your social security number. I'm just trying to see like, what's the temperature of the community?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
what's the pulse of the community? So,
Yes.
and I think a lot more, even TV people need to do that. And even like people, like teams who are out there in the public and like saying, oh, we're so got to do the bro stance, I got to change the angle of the camera a bit, like the camera that's slightly lower and then crossed arms.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that. As I destroy my setup. But it's true though. It is so true.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yes.
So I would love to see the data behind that. And I think that's why a lot of like content creators don't succeed as much with like getting exposure, because they're not doing a pulse check on their community. So, which, yeah.
That's it. Yes, exactly. Because people are pretty open about what they want and what they want to see and what interests them. So you just have to ask them and then respond to that. That's how you build a community too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people who just ask, hey, what'd you eat for dinner tonight? Then I'm like, so I know my community likes fried chicken. Awesome. Yeah,
right. There's no real follow-up to that though. Yeah.
Nah. So anyway, yeah.
Cool.
That's me.
I love it. That's amazing. Do you have anything that you want to promote before I let you enjoy the rest of your night?
Sure. Maybe my latest book, One Bed Over, which is basically the companion continuation from my haunted hospitals episode, which actually can be connected to what we've been talking about with how Paranormal Media presents things. Yeah. Because basically I wrote the book to explain the things they didn't cover or elaborate on the things that maybe weren't quite as true.
Yeah.
So
excellent. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. And I'm going to put links to everything. So your YouTube channel, TikTok, all of that in the description.
Perfect.
So people can find you and watch what you do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening and or watching, depending on where you found this podcast. You can follow Alex online at The Spooky Stuff. I'm going to put links in the descriptions for her TikTok, her Instagram, everything. Follow her. She has great things to say. She asks difficult questions. She's also not afraid to push the science of ghost hunting forward, which I think only helps all of us. And just to reiterate, there was something in the interview that she said that really resonated with me. And this idea that if you don't have a TV show or things to lose, you actually have a position of power, because you can call out power structures, you can call out a lack of diversity, you can call out ableism in the community. You can use your voice to lend change and to let people know if they're feeling left out, they're not alone, that we can work together in order to make this community more inclusive and more welcoming and in a real way. So hopefully you have that intention of changing the world for the better as you go forth. And I hope you also have a playful and curious day.